What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, September 29th, 2020, getting toward the end of the month here. We have a lot to talk about today, and so we're going to get right on into it. I got a lot of news. We may be delaying opening the phone lines. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, and he'll be answering the phone when we do open those lines. Obviously, big story is tonight is the first presidential debate over in Cleveland. Donald Trump just arrived on Air Force One. We don't know where Biden is at the moment here. And apparently Cleveland is a little bit nervous about what's going to go on. The police are swarming the debate site amid fears of riots when the debates get underway. Apparently stores are boarding up their windows. They're very concerned. The Ohio National Guard has been deployed to Cleveland ahead of the presidential debates. And the court system is prepared for an influx of arrests. So now, interesting little article coming out of Spiked Online saying that Trump is actually becoming more progressive than the left. And they're responding, of course, to all of this talk coming out of the leftists about how Trump is Hitler. And they even have placards showing Trump with a Hitler mustache. And commentators said Trump's rhetoric had ominous echoes of the 1930s. And they're still at it. But Trump is increasingly saying things the left ought to be saying on every issue, from race to freedom to revolutionary history. Donald Trump is now more progressive than the left that loves to hate him. All right. Now, President Trump's confidential tax records from 2005 have allegedly been leaked. They show he paid $36,142,505 in annual taxes. So that New York Times story was very, very selective. They came on out with the tax returns from years where he suffered huge business losses. Now, the Democrats are upset because they were looking for two things in those tax records. One, that Trump did something illegal, and two, that there was a link to Russia somewhere in there. And on both, they failed. It's a nothing burger. And, what Trump did was tax avoidance. And all corporations do tax avoidance. All Americans do tax avoidance. We all try and pay the least amount of taxes that we can under the law. And that's exactly what Donald Trump did. He did what any other businessman would do in the same circumstances. Now, apparently, Donald Trump, when he was going through his huge business loss failure, he was held up not by Russia, but by his reality TV show. He made $427 million. And apparently, the tax records show The Apprentice and endorsement deals with Domino's Pizza, mattresses, and laundry detergent gave him that lifeline after the huge business losses. Now, it's come on out that Joe Biden used a loophole to avoid paying payroll taxes. So everybody does it. It's not a big deal. But Biden is probably going to try and make a big deal about it because most average Americans don't understand how the tax laws really work. And Biden is going to say, Trump is avoiding taxes. Well, yeah, everybody tries to avoid taxes. Show me one American, who'll like put a couple of extra zeros on that check to the Internal Revenue Service and say, here, I feel like giving you more. Because if there is such a person, they should not be allowed to drive in public, in my opinion here. All righty, we're seeing a lot more stuff coming on out about irregularities in the voting process. Voters in New York City have received mail-in ballots for the 2020 presidential election marked for military use, despite never having served in the armed forces, which is causing confusion and concerns over whether the ballots can or should be used. The misprint makes it appear that the voters received an official military absentee ballot instead of a military/absentee ballot, leaving several borough residents who received the documents, including two Post journalists, worried that their votes might not be properly tallied. The system is a mess here. Okay, there's been yet another tape coming from Project Veritas, a second ballot harvesting video featuring an apparent purchase of a ballot from a Somali resident of Minnesota. The video then features several allegations made by local Somalis regarding the alleged scheme, including direct involvement by Representative Ilhan Omar. Biden's Texas political director was caught on video filling out ballots for dead people and homeless people. So he's been formally accused of helping to run an illegal ballot harvesting operation, according to two separate affidavits filed Monday in the Texas Supreme Court. Two private investigators, including a former FBI agent and former police officer, testified under oath that they have video evidence, documentation, and witnesses to prove that Biden's Texas political director, Dallas Jones, and his cohorts are currently hoarding mail-in and absentee ballots and ordering operatives to fill the ballots out for people illegally, including for dead people and homeless people and nursing home residents in the 2020 presidential election. This election is so crooked, they're going to have to screw those ballots into those ballot boxes. William Barr has begun a voter fraud probe after the video showing a massive harvest by Democrats around the United States. Minneapolis police are opening an investigation into reports that Ilhan Omar's supporters illegally harvested Democrat ballots in Minnesota. They're cheating. They're absolutely cheating. And Donald, you had 3 years to fix this system, and you didn't. You dropped the ball. And if the election gets stolen from you in November, you've got nobody to blame but yourself. Now, Donald Trump is slamming CNN for their sick and totally ridiculous report that he wanted his daughter Ivanka to run as his VP in 2016. And he described the story as sick and wrong. Of course, CNN is coming out with anything they can to make Trump look bad here. Meanwhile, of course, Vice President Biden helped his son Hunter become fabulously wealthy by shaking down international governments and corporations, and you're not going to see that on the corporate media. The focus is on Donald Trump's taxes. Oh, he avoided paying taxes. Everybody avoids paying taxes. You use the laws that are out there to reduce your tax obligation. It's perfectly legal to do so. Anyway, this bombshell report that was produced by two Senate committees and released last week that the corporate media continues to ignore, continues to produce explosive details that should alarm anyone even thinking about voting for Joe Biden. Earlier reports noted that the document produced by the Republican-led Senate Homeland and Governmental Affairs Committee and the Senate Finance Committee found that Hunter Biden, the vice president's son, appeared to be involved in several shady dealings with foreign entities and firms, and that ranking officials within the Obama administration were well aware of them, while some even attempted to raise red flags but were rebuffed. For example, the report says the Obama regime knew that the appointment of Hunter Biden to the board of Burisma, an inherently corrupt energy company, created a huge conflict of interest for Joe Biden, who as vice president had been taken by President Obama to formulate U.S. policies aimed at rooting out corruption. All righty, another story. This one is coming out of Revolver.news. The truth about Hunter Biden's China entanglements is even more sinister than previously thought. A report revealing that Hunter Biden received a $3.5 million wire transfer from a politically connected Russian billionaire has recently overshadowed focus on Hunter's extensively documented financial entanglements with China. Revolver News has obtained access to a carefully crafted report offering important and disturbing information and context to Hunter's business dealings and relationships in China that suggest a renewed focus on Hunter's China connection is appropriate. Okay. Now, turning to protests and wokeness and the rest of it. Tremendous development in the Breonna Taylor shooting case. The witness who claimed he heard the police announce themselves prior to entering Breonna Taylor's apartment has now recanted. Now, last week, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron made the bombshell statement that the cops who shot Breonna Taylor won't be convicted, justifying their use of force as self-defense. In that justification, he explained that one witness confirmed the three officers' insistence that they knocked and announced themselves at Taylor's Louisville home. And it contradicted claims from Taylor's boyfriend, Kenny Walker, and 11 other residents who argued they didn't hear the cops identify themselves. Instead, Walker assumed he was being burglarized and fired a warning shot. Saturday, the sole witness claimed that he didn't actually hear the officers, Brett Hankerson, Jonathan Mattingly, and Miles Cosgrove, announce themselves. So that is a new development that's going to keep the Breonna Taylor case in the public eye for a little while longer. All right, the Air Force is taking the first steps toward canceling any contracts for diversity and unconscious bias training that include segments on white privilege and other controversial subjects as called for by the White House. The Air Force's move follows a September 4th memo from Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Voigt, which alleged executive branch agencies have spent millions of taxpayer dollars training government workers to believe divisive anti-American propaganda. All right, the Portland Proud Boys rally ends with no major clashes, despite fears the pro-Trump event would be targeted by Black Lives Matter. Police say a right-wing Proud Boys rally and counter-protests in Portland, Oregon have largely dispersed without serious violence, although they are investigating an assault after one person who was documenting the event was pushed to the ground and kicked in the face. About 1,000 people gathered at the Proud Boys rally in Delta Park on Saturday, while a group of 500 left-wing counter-protesters massed in nearby Peninsula Park, leading to fears of clashes. All right, let's talk about COVID-19, coronavirus. It's still out there, and I'm going fast because I got a lot of stuff to get through. The head of the United Nations has warned there is no end in sight to coronavirus after the number of global fatalities hit the mind-numbing level of 1 million. And it's time to start asking, what is the real agenda behind all of this? Because 1 million is a big number to an individual. But when you look at the total population of planet Earth, you know, of 6.5, 7 billion people, 1 million is a tiny, tiny percentage. And this is a far cry from a slate wiper like the 1918 so-called Spanish flu. So there's something else going on, and that has to do with these face masks, which are totally useless. I got an email from somebody today saying that, you know, when you wear that face mask and you breathe, it fogs up your glasses, which means whatever you're breathing out gets around that mask. And so it's really not effective. New York City is warning several neighborhoods could be put on strict lockdown today, with all non-essential businesses closed, a ban on gatherings of more than 10 people, and schools shut down amid a deeply concerning surge in COVID-19 cases. All right, let's get back to Armenia and Azerbaijan, because that is one of 4 hotspots where World War III could erupt here. Fighting that erupted on Sunday between Azerbaijan and ethnic Armenians in the contested mountain enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh continued throughout Monday. Officials in Nagorno-Karabakh said 26 more of their soldiers were killed Monday evening, bringing the total of dead Nagorno-Karabakh troops to 84. 11 civilians have been reported killed in the fighting, 9 on the Azerbaijan side, 2 on the Armenian side. So far, no Azeri military casualties have been reported. Armenia and Azerbaijan, both post-Soviet states, have been locked in a territorial dispute over Nagorno-Karabakh for decades. Now, Azerbaijan is denying reports that Turkey is sending Syrian mercenaries into the fight. Azerbaijan rejected the statement from Armenia that claimed Turkey had sent Syrian mercenaries to support Azeri forces after heavy clashes in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. On Sunday, fighting erupted between Azeri and Armenian forces in the disputed area and continued on Monday. Turkey is throwing its weight behind brotherly Azerbaijan in a fresh escalation. They're promising support both on and off the battlefield. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut, and I cannot pronounce this last name, I'm sorry, announced on Tuesday that Ankara will stand by Azerbaijan in the face of what he described as Armenian aggression, and offered both diplomatic and military assistance. Speaking after a visit to the Azerbaijani Rented Lips embassy in Ankara, he told the press that the only way the fighting will end is if Yerevan rolls back on the occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh. Now, there's new footage has surfaced of tanks being obliterated as Armenia and Azerbaijan forces battled overnight. Turkey is accused of supporting genocide as Armenia vows to use more destructive weapons. Apparently, there's a thought that F-16s will enter the battle, and that will bring in the use of Iskander missiles on the other side here. Now, that's one flashpoint. There's another one over there, and it's Greece and Turkey. Tensions between Greece and Turkey that became a geopolitical crisis in the East Mediterranean appear to be finally subsiding after Ankara withdrew from Greece's maritime space the Orok Reis Turkish research vessel and the warships escorting it. Since Turkish President Recep Erdogan initiated the crisis at the beginning of August in search of oil and gas deposits in Greece's maritime space, his administration, along with Turkish media that is 90% controlled by the government, continually makes the claim that Greece must demilitarize their East Aegean islands as stipulated by the 1923 Treaty of Lausanne. The Treaty of Lausanne set the borders of the modern Greek state, with the exception of the Italian-occupied Dodecanese Islands that reunited with Greece in April 1947 after the signing of the Paris Peace Treaty between Italy and the World War II allies. It also set the borders for the modern Turkish state. So what is this really all about? What is the conflict between Greece and Turkey all about? Basically, if things between Greece and Turkey don't cool down, there will be a new European Mediterranean war ensuing, and such a war would not merely be European, but Euro-Asian, and at its furthest reach, global. So that's another one of the hot spots we have to keep an eye on. Now, over in Israel, Netanyahu is not ruling out a preemptive strike against Iran. Last month, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu denounced the UN Security Council's decision not to allow an extension of the arms embargo on Iran as scandalous, adding his country is set to continue jointly working with the United States to thwart what he called Iranian aggression. Pot, meet, kettle. Israel has not ruled out a preemptive strike against Iran, Netanyahu warned during a memorial service on Tuesday for those who fell in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, an Arab-Israeli military standoff. He said, a preemptive strike is a difficult thing to do. I know that if Iran wants to base itself in the north, we are ready to fight them. This is a direct lesson from the Yom Kippur War. Basically, Netanyahu asserted that Iran will do everything, or rather Israel will do everything in order to protect the state of Israel. We are not ruling out a preliminary strike. That's another of the hot spots we need to look at. Meanwhile, Iran's military is reporting they've made a deal with the Syrian government to help rebuild their air defense systems and have signed a new contract to begin when the Iran arms embargo expires next month. Details of the contract are unclear, but Iranians said they're ready to export some arms with the embargo's expiration. The likely arms are Sayed-2, as the Syrians have S-200 launchers, which are compatible with the Iranian missiles. Syria has invested a lot in air defenses over the years, but over the past year, they've lost a lot of capacity in some parts of the country, facing near constant Israeli attacks. The systems are mostly bought from Russia, but Iran's compatible parts may be cheaper. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is preparing even more new Iran sanctions. The exact wording is still being worked on, but the Trump administration is preparing to introduce a new round of sanctions against Iran in general and its financial sector in particular. The goal, an executive order from Trump imposing these before the election. Again, how it works isn't confirmed, but the idea is to prevent every last avenue of legal financial exchange for Iran. Since this is already effectively the case with existing sanctions, the changes are likely to be minor. These new restrictions will be presented as closing loopholes, and some officials are saying that the real goal is to prevent Joe Biden, if he wins the election, from easily reversing the sanctions and returning the U.S. to the nuclear deal. Iraqi Premier Mustafa Kadhimi came out of his recent visit to the United States with talk of a U.S. drawdown and potential outright pullout from the country, just like they're getting ready to do up in Afghanistan. As it stands today, Iraqi officials are expressing real concern that the United States could be about to start yet another war in the country. And the concern is the U.S. threat to evacuate the Iraq embassy raises the possibility of a new war. All of the signs are there. The U.S. is threatening to close the embassy. It's making preparations to evacuate diplomats over the recent rocket attacks in the vicinity of the site. Now, of course, not surprisingly, when they issued that threat to close the site, the number of rocket attacks increased. Okay, we have to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And a friendly reminder and nudge in the ribs that Republic Broadcasting Network isn't a perpetual fundraiser. And first and foremost, a heartfelt thanks to those of you who've already donated. It really does make a difference. We're trying to keep things going along the way they are. We don't have any corporate sponsors or angels out there. And in fact, we probably wouldn't take any large amounts of money from any individual or corporation, because they'd start trying to control what we say and do here at Republic Broadcasting. So we really need you to step on up and keep us independent, to give you the facts that you need to make good decisions. So one more time, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Getting on back to the international news here, following on that story about how the closure of the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad may signal war. For the first time in nearly 2.5 years, U.S. jets launched airstrikes in Iraq from an aircraft carrier. The strikes were carried out September 23rd by 2 FA-18 Super Hornets from the USS Nimitz, this according to a spokeswoman for the Bahrain-based U.S. Fifth Fleet. The last such strike was by USS Theodore Roosevelt in March of 2018. So the jets are flying, the carriers are carrying, and so forth and so on here. All righty, the Emir of Kuwait has died, age 91. He had a good run here. The official spokesman for the Kuwaiti government called on the international community to take information from official sources and not pay attention to what is being raised on social media. But apparently, the announcement of the Emir, Sabah al-Ahmad al-Jabbar al-Sabah, came just hours after the Minister of Emiri Diwan Affairs, Sheikh Ali Jarrah al-Sabah, announced that the Emir's health was stable and he was receiving the prescribed treatment. Okay. Yemen's Al Masirah TV has published documents disclosing U.S. interference in the Arab country. A Yemeni television network has published a number of classified and top-secret documents from the U.S. diplomatic mission in the country, which reveal Washington's interference in the internal affairs of the country since many years ago. Imagine my shock. The U.S. Embassy's documents were publicized by the Al Masirah television network before the September 21st revolution, the 2014 popular uprising that toppled the Saudi-backed government of former Yemeni President Abd Rabbu Mansur Hadi, and included directives from previous American ambassador Gerald M. Feuerstein to the presidency on transfer of the so-called anti-terrorism units from the Ministry of Interior to the Defense Ministry. Okay. The U.S. Army has announced that a combat brigade from the 10th Mountain Division will deploy this fall to Afghanistan in a rotation to support Operation Freedom Sentinel. The 2nd Brigade combat team based at Fort Drum, New York, will replace the 10th Mountain's 1st Brigade combat team and participate in the U.S. counterterrorism mission against al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups, according to an Army news release. Apparently, an Army unit is also deploying over to Korea to deter China. Egypt is being rocked by demonstrations as protesters demand Sisi's resignation. And there have been mass protests lately against the government of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi over the past week, with demonstrators defying heavy-handed police crackdowns across the North African country, demanding his resignation. The protests continued across Egyptian cities and rural areas for the 7th consecutive day on Saturday over corruption and deteriorating living conditions in the country, with protesters holding placards and chanting slogans against Sisi's government. All righty. Recent confrontations in the Eastern Mediterranean, fueled by the prospect of exploiting offshore gas deposits, have raised fears of an upcoming clash in the region. The main contenders in the complex dispute are Greece and Cyprus on the one hand, Turkey on the other. The latter has advanced controversial claims over waters that are traditionally recognized as being under Greek and Cypriot jurisdiction. But other states are also involved due to geopolitical and economic interest, most notably France, Egypt, Israel, Italy, the United States, and Russia. While diplomacy is at work to prevent a destabilizing conflict, regional powers are also preparing for this scenario by conducting exercises and purchasing new armaments. Turkey has been expanding its military in recent years, often procuring important weapon systems from Europe or the United States. All right, let's talk about the economic news now. Okay, will Democrats street 50 million Americans? Okay, the rent is due Thursday the 1st. And they're saying 50 million Americans are behind in their rent and mortgage payments. Their next payment is due Thursday, October the 1st. Nancy Pelosi said she will keep the House in session until they pass a second stimulus bill. But she insists that addition to preventing 50 million from going homeless, that they add $1 trillion+ to bail out blue state governors and mayors to save their jobs, something the Republicans are opposed to. We got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show. Here, we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines and grab a pen and paper because we have a second phone number to use. If you can't get through on the toll-free line of 800-313-9443, you can reach us at area code 512-248-8252. And I'm sorry it's not toll-free, but we're still dealing with some of the issues with our toll-free lines here. So let's go to Nick in Clearwater, Florida. Hello, Nick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mr. Rivero, good to be on your show, man. I just want to say real briefly, I think Trump is good for us, if only in the respect that he cleared up the morale and got rid of some of this political correctness that's been killing us. I'm 54, about your age, and it's been a tough sled all the way, you know. So, my cousin Dave, he was a guest on your show before. So, good job, man. You guys are invaluable to me and a lot of other people. And just wanted to say thanks, man, okay?
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. Thank you very much for the phone call. And we're going to go ahead and get back to the news now. So the hosts of the Kaiser Report, Max and Stacy, look into the recent revelations by the U.S. government that 5 global banks have processed trillions of dollars in suspicious transactions. Apparently, our ordinary account holders aren't enough for them to run their business. So they're doing business with some very, very shady individuals and governments. According to the U.S. Department of Treasury's Financial Crime Enforcement Network, those institutions are the Bank of New York Mellon, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, JP Morgan Chase, and Standard Charter. We're going to go back to the phones to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Mike? Hey, Mike, I had to call today after yesterday, all right? After I heard both Tom and Miles, all right? I tried to challenge Miles, but evidently he didn't feel like debating. By the way, I think debating is a good thing. I think you should encourage it more with more people. I think it actually adds to your show. It doesn't detract. Okay, so I've heard somebody say it detracts. No, I don't think it detracts at all. But anyway, first of all, let me tell you something, both of you guys, Tom and Miles. First of all, I think it was Miles who said I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. No, Miles, I was not a Bernie Sanders supporter. I was a Tulsi Gabbard supporter because I'm tired of all these wars and interventions, we see examples of them still going on now, especially in the Middle East. Okay, I did say that I'd vote for Bernie under certain conditions if he was the nominee, but he disqualified himself, as far as I'm concerned, when he started his nonsense, pointing his finger towards Putin, saying, "You're not going to do this to us, Putin." The nonsense he said. He told me right away that Bernie's more of a neo-lib than he is really of a socialist. Okay, neoliberal. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, when we talk about Trump's record, you just mentioned, Tom said something really silly yesterday about his golf game. I don't even play golf. I'm totally bored with it. I don't even know how it's scored. I don't watch it. I don't play it. I don't do anything of it.
Me too.
One of the most boring imaginable. I do, however, play chess. I'm pretty good at it. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of people that play it, so my skills have probably deteriorated somewhat, but I think they'd come back if I had more people to play it. And I know what a chess player is.
I used to play a lot of chess here, but then I quit when my smartphone started beating me all the time because I won't accept that kind of upstart behavior from an appliance.
Okay, you actually played your own phone, huh?
Yes.
But anyway, the fact of the matter is, you can tell Trump is no chess player. He's not very bright. You just said it before about what he did to his own election chances by allowing this criminal activity to take place in the voting system.
Mm-hmm.
He also, like I said, he's appointed some of the worst people imaginable to both his cabinet and the government as a whole. One of the reasons he's had so much trouble now, he put the worst type of neocons and even neoliberals in there. And he didn't actually stab, but he threw under the bus the man who would have been the best man for his administration completely, and it was Mike Flynn. All right?
Yes.
Second of all, I do say some good things. And by the way, Miles, TPP was the Trans-Pacific Partnership that Trump almost immediately pulled out of. It's not something that's, around today or something like that, or that he pulled out in the future. No, he pulled out right away of that, okay? And it was, and I say that's good.
Yes.
I also think it's good that he got up the climate accord. And I think it was great when he said he was going to get us out of Syria. But then the next day, Netanyahu, his boss, evidently convinced him not to get out of Syria. Instead, to make like we're taking their oil instead, which is thievery at the very least.
Yes.
Right? The other thing is, of course, what he did when he bombed Syria. There was no reason for it. And then said he was eating a piece of chocolate cake while he did it. I don't find that funny at all. I find that was disgusting what he did. And it could have gotten us into World War III.
Yes.
If you'd been a more, let's say, hotter tempered type of guy, we could have been in World War III right there. But Trump is not good at all as far as being a president. He's horrendous. But again, I'll have to vote for him, not because I'm not trying. I'll have to vote for him because the alternative is even worse.
Yes.
Biden and Harris are unacceptable. The other thing is, too, I'm going to vote straight Republican in North Carolina this year, not because I'm a Republican. I'm an independent. I hate both parties, and I wish both parties would disband and we'd get something else. Maybe we'll get rid of political parties like the Founding Fathers wanted to. But the reason I'm going to vote straight Republican ticket this year is because of the mandatory mask laws. This bum who's the governor of North Carolina, Cooper, put into effect, and he still hasn't completely unlocked the state. And on top of that, he vetoed a constitutional carry law here in North Carolina where you wouldn't even have to go to the government to get a permit or anything else. You just could carry a firearm, which many states already have. I'm not sure of Indiana. Indiana might even be one of those states. But there's quite a few states that have it. Okay, I know Missouri has it. I think even Maine has it. And Vermont has it. Even though, Vermont is a highly liberal state. So the fact of the matter is also, try to compare me with Dustin, not you. I think it was Tom that tried to compare me with Dustin. Well, let's put it like this. I don't disagree with Dustin and everything. On foreign policy, me and Dustin are probably right on the, we're together there. I agree with him on most things on foreign policy.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think we should have troops anywhere in the world. I think we should close all our bases. I believe in America first. Take care of the problems in this country. We have no business in all these places. Okay? So, yeah, but where I disagree with Dustin is when he comes up with his cockamamie theory about masks. I think it's a good thing to wear masks. And on top of that, believing all the COVID-19 garbage that they're putting out. I told you my friend got it, right? I told you last week.
Yes.
And he works in that prison there that I used to work in, 12 hours a day, and wears that mask for 12 hours. Him and everybody has to work. So obviously it didn't protect anybody because a number of officers have come down with it, and a number of inmates have come down with it now. All right? And he got that oxygen thing that's, what do you call that deal there that you put in your finger? And he wanted to see for himself. He took it, it was 97, and then he put on a mask for 15 minutes, and it went down to 91. Okay? So, I mean, that tells you right there, and I've seen this before, by the way, on various things on the internet,
Yes.
including medical personnel. It shows how you're deprived of oxygen by using those masks. So it's very possible that whatever virus he's gotten and these other people have gotten has probably very likely been caused by the mask. Not that the mask helps. It very likely caused it. It certainly doesn't lower your immune system. No doubt about it. I have to wear when I go to a bunch of stores now for a few minutes, and it's disgusting just for a few minutes. So I can just have to sympathize that people have got to wear those things for hours. And they tell me, I talk to them, and they tell me how disgusting it is. And they know that it's for nothing. They know they're being played. Okay, more and more people know this virus is a scam. There may be such a virus out there, yes, but it's not the it's not the Black Plague. All right, you don't have millions of people dying in the streets. All right, this is just it's not like Biden says 200 million people died. That's up from the 120 million he said before. But then again, this is where I'm saying this man has no business anywhere close to the White House. You imagine him on his finger on a nuclear button? No. Thanks, but no thanks. But anyway, that's all, pretty much what I want to say to Tom. And, Miles, you guys are free if you want. If it's okay with Mike, you're free to call now and, argue with me. I don't care. I'll take y'all on. I'll take you. I'll take Tom, Miles, and Dustin. Y'all want to come on
we do try and avoid that situation because, I get a lot of emails saying that this is turning into the Jerry Springer show, and I would really like to avoid that. So all I ask is for the callers to come on, make their points, be respectful, no personal attacks, and, just keep the dialogue, polite and respectful.
Sure. I understand that. I do think it's kind of entertaining, though, when you have more than one person, when you argue, as long as it doesn't go like you said. Jerry Springer got into the cursing, the fighting, and all that stuff. It doesn't have to get like that. But anyway, but I understand, people thinking like that. But anyway, I do hope they call after this. I'd love to hear what they have to say. But I don't see how you can beat my argument, either of you guys, because Trump is not a good president. He's horrendous. Just that we have no choice now because of, the shenanigans both parties did, how they deprived Tulsi of even getting into most of the primaries, and how they pulled the strings to get Biden in there, and now Harris, who didn't even get 1% of the Democratic vote. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I hate both parties, Mike. I really do.
Yes.
I'm only going to vote totally Republican this year because of these mask laws and because of the gun laws. I'm conservative on some things. I'm liberal on others, and I'm middle of the road on others. On certain economic issues, I make Bernie Sanders seem like Ronald Reagan, like a Reagan Republican, okay, on certain economic issues, okay? I tax the you-know-what out of these billionaires, it's up to me, because they caused most of these problems. They're predators, and they buy and sell everything, including the government officials that are supposed to represent we the people. I tax their wealth. I mean, there wouldn't be anything like Jeff Bezos would not be a multi-billionaire if I had my way. He would barely be a millionaire. Okay, the same thing with Zuckerberg, the same thing with Bloomberg, the same thing with any of these guys. All right, I have no use for them, Mike. And I'm like I said, I'm not a conservative and I'm not a liberal, and I'm not a libertarian either. Some things about the libertarians I like, but not everything, because I do think we have to sometimes kick some of these these rich people in the behind, okay?
Yes.
Because otherwise they'll do it to us. And that's what's happening right now. That's what a lot of these globalists are. They're not socialists. They're predators, predatory capitalists, and many of them are Malthusians who want to basically do away with the majority of us. And that's all I got to say. These guys call again. I'd be happy to hear what they have to say.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. I'm going to switch over to James in Charlotte. Hello, James. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, Mike, how's it going?
Going fine.
I want to talk a couple of things about the Trump's tax return information that was released. One thing that happened to occur to me with Biden releasing his last year's tax return just a couple of hours ago, I guess, to try and spring something on Trump before the debate.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking if the Trump organization would just release all of their withholding and Social Security taxes that they paid on their employees for the last few years, I'm sure it would be many times what Biden paid in income tax.
Yeah, it would be huge. It would definitely be huge. And Biden skipped payroll taxes by using a loophole apparently involving S corporations.
Yeah, I happened to notice that. I didn't really take a close look at it, but I just did happen to notice it.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that this information that was released illegally or was obtained illegally,
yes,
I hope they find out how it happened. But it shows. I'm assuming. It shows that Trump's all of this deduction, I'm not sure exactly how it was claimed, but the fact that he hasn't paid taxes for the last several years, and he's under audit, which people have been claiming that he's just lying about that, but apparently it proves that he was telling the truth about his previous returns being under audit. And he's probably been under audit since he started into the real estate.
Probably. Ultra rich people, they deal with audits all the time here. But again, what Trump did was avoid paying taxes, which is something every American tries to do. And there was nothing illegal in what he did. And same thing with Biden using S corps to get out of paying payroll taxes. That's perfectly legal as well. It's a loophole, but it is there. But the Democrats are really angry because they were hoping there would be something inside those tax returns that would link to Russia to bolster the whole Russiagate claim. And they're very angry it wasn't there.
Yeah, they didn't find. I'm sure they were just hoping there would be uncover a real rat's nest of criminality there, and they found nothing really that they could come back on him. So, but if like I said, if the Trump organization would just release withholding and Social Security taxes, it would probably be several millions of dollars in taxes, I'm sure, that they pay over the last
between
few
years. Between 2005 and 2007, I think the Trump organization, Donald Trump, paid something like $70 million in taxes.
Yeah. Well,
all right,
talking about income tax?
Yeah, James, we got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials.
Okay.
We got more callers waiting on the other side. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the phone lines here to Mitchell in Memphis. Hello, Mitchell. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, what's going on? Listen, I wanted to say something in response to what Mark in North Carolina was talking about.
Okay.
You've got these two guys, Tom and what's the other guy's name? Miles in Maine?
Yes.
And, if anyone so much as makes a comment about not liking Trump's shirt, these two guys come out and berate them to a fare thee well on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it is that it is getting ridiculous. I mean, these two guys, you give them like 10 plus minutes apiece. Yesterday, I think on yesterday's show, they had a combined time of 20 to 25 minutes. If your show is 2 hours, you take out the commercial breaks. This is like 25% of the show is listening to these two guys.
All right, I'll keep that in mind for the future.
But let me make a point about yesterday's show, 9/28/20. It was very disgusting to me. I wrote this down here at 1:15:39. The phone call starts at 1:19:57. By the way, this is Miles in Maine's phone call. All he did was lay into Mark in North Carolina.
Yes.
At 1:19:57, evidently Mark tried to call in to challenge Miles.
Yes.
And Miles decided, no, I don't want to talk to Mark. that's like as yellow as it gets.
I can't force them to talk to each other.
But it's my prerogative to say that he's a coward. But the point is that he said that he would rather not have a discussion with Mark, and He didn't want Mark to come on. Okay. So then he went on for another 5 minutes from 119 to 125. He goes on to at one point start berating Mark again. Well, the thing is, Mike, I can kind of understand why Miles didn't want to debate Mark. Because if we go back to what really happened, Mike Rivero, Wednesday, 8/12/20.
Mm-hmm.
News analyst calls. Okay, we go back to Ron Gibson upload. We go to 117:25. Miles is debating Mark again, and they're talking about Bolton or something. And Miles is saying, why did Trump even hire Bolton? Or excuse me, Mark is querying Miles as to why did he? And Miles says, "There's an old saying." After stuttering, he says, "There's an old saying. Sometimes it takes a crook to catch a crook." This is not Miles is supposed to be defending Trump, mind you.
Yes.
At 121:14, Miles says, "Who knows what Trump was thinking?" At 121:39, Miles says, "Trump is not a politician. He is not fast at figuring some of these motivations out."
Mm-hmm.
This is not bode well if you're trying to defend Trump. So Miles is basically making a fool of himself, making foolish statements. And this is a beautiful one here. At 121:50, Miles from Maine says, "I'm looking for the next term to see what the real Trump, what the real Trump." This is equivalent to Nancy Pelosi. You got to pass the bill to read it.
Yeah.
So wrapping up here, of course, Miles doesn't want to debate Mark from North Carolina because he's going to make a fool of himself. But that's very yellow. But real quick, Mike, Tom, let's go to Tom real quick. Tom was debating Mark.
Mitchell, stay on the line. I got to put you on hold. We got to take a break for station identification. I'll come right back to you after these few words. And welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443 or 512-248-8252. We're talking with Mitchell in Memphis. And Mitchell, you said you had one more point you wanted to make.
I wanted to make the point because I was talking about Miles and Tom always laying into people when they say something that they don't like, something bad about Trump. But at any rate, I noticed here at 8/6/20 on the show, at the 1:16:58, Tom was debating Mark from North Carolina, and Tom said, "Mark, you've got your opinion. Opinions are like, what? Everybody has one." So, some scatological, that may have been funny if I was in the 6th grade, Tom. But at any rate, Tom does say a good thing here. He says, "But I'll fight for your right to say what you've got to say. That's what we have. That's why we have freedom of speech."
Yes.
It's fantastic. So that was good, Tom. That was good. In 8/25/20, Tom again was talking. Tom from Florida says, "I might like what a person has. I may not like what a person has to say, but I'll fight for his right to say it." So once again, that same good message, freedom of speech. But look at this, Mike, 7/1/20. Look at that, 7/1/20 on your show. Tom at 118:08 says, Tom says, "I want to repudiate and muzzle that guy Mitchell from Memphis yesterday." Mike, I'm Mitchell.
Yes.
That's me. Tom wanted to muzzle me. Tom wanted to muzzle me. So he talks about he'll fight for the freedom of people to have freedom of speech. But there on 7/1/20, he wanted to muzzle Mitchell from Memphis because I was asking a question about if we have a delegitimized government that's broken the social contract, can you really be a citizen of a government that doesn't really exist legitimately? That's what I was asking Tom and the other callers. But wrapping up, we'll conclude. We've established now that at best, Tom is a hypocrite. And at worst, we would call him a liar. And now we've established that Miles from Maine wants to lay into people, and when the person calls him and says, "I'll challenge you," he says no. So Tom's a liar, and Miles is yellow. But real quick, the last thing I'll say, I want these two guys to answer these 3 questions if they can, because they're going to lay into me, big deal. But answer these questions, Tom and Miles. Number 1, has the social contract in America been broken by the government? Question number 2, do the individuals in positions of power in government possess legitimate political authority? And number 3, has the U.S. become despotic? Has the U.S. government become despotic, and should it be thrown off as recommended in the Declaration of Independence? Why don't you two guys answer that question for me, and let's get down to some serious business. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you for the phone call. Let's switch over to Joe in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
I don't know what to say after that phone call. I mean, that guy does his research. He kind of scares me. I might say something, and then you'll get at 2 minutes past 5 on 1672. But anyway,
I'd like to make franchise for that caller.
I mean, he's pretty talented at research, and I'll give him that. But I want to say one thing just about, callers wanting to debate you when you make a call. And I had Mark do that to me the other day, and I really didn't mention Mark by name. And I was polite, so I let him come on, but I never got to get what I wanted to get out. So I just think that maybe that's, I don't blame Miles for not taking a call while you're, because you're in your zone and you're trying to get your message out, and you don't want to be kind of interrupted. So I don't consider it cowardice on Miles' part at all. And I like Miles. I like everybody. I mean, so that's the way I feel about it. Just because you don't want somebody coming in on your call doesn't mean you're a coward, because I ended up, by the time that call was over, I never got to talk what I wanted to talk about. So anyway, but tonight's the big debate. And
yes.
I think that doesn't matter as long as Biden doesn't poop his pants or faint or something. The media's going to say he won. So,
yes.
But at the same time, it's not about the media. It's always been, by having a debate, you go around the media. The best thing to do is watch the debate and then go to bed. Don't listen to the after debate. People tell you what you just didn't see, but what they saw that they're supposed to promote, So
yes.
In a way, it's an end run around the controllers in the media, which I always think is a great thing because it gives you exposure without, the propaganda and the agenda that the media has. And anytime that Trump is involved in that with his opposition is positive because, of course, the media is always going to be anti-populist and anti-nationalist, and therefore it's an advantage for Trump to have events like this. But don't expect them to say that Trump won. I mean, unless it's something totally bizarre, Biden goes into a ball and starts, wetting himself. Other than that, they're going to say how Biden won. You can guarantee it.
Well, I don't think many people are going to be listening to the corporate media analysis of the debate. Whatever happens tonight is not going to affect Trump's base. They're pretty much rock solid. What Biden's task is to reassure his base that he really is capable of handling the job. And so, frankly, if there's any stumbling, if there are any gaffes, if he loses his train of thought, it's going to work very much against him.
Right. Now, these debates are for the independent and undecided voters at this time.
Yes.
Both bases are in their place. But
well, Biden could lose some of the voters who are going to vote for him if he goofs up tonight.
Oh no, but like I said, it'll be interesting. What I'll be watching for is the after effects of how that gets spun, because it's interesting to watch. It's any debate, I watch it and then I watch, okay, because I know the angles that these people have. It's kind of like the way they're attacking Amy Coney Barrett because of her Catholicism. And it's interesting because they don't attack Joe Biden for his Catholicism or Nancy Pelosi because they're not really Catholic, and they're not really, they're Catholic in name only. I mean, but you can't be a traditional Catholic and God forbid that, the knives come out. And I was pondering it today and I realized that, the Catholic Church is one of the few institutions that, protected European civilization from being dominated by the Jews for hundreds and thousands of years. The Protestants were the ones who really kind of caused a lot of trouble using Jews or Jews using Protestants to attack the church. So I can see why the controllers and the money people, they hate Catholics, because the Catholic Church did a darn good job for centuries of keeping, the Jews from totally dominating their societies, whereas now the Jews basically kind of own us, and they own most of Europe, and maybe not in Russia because of the Orthodox Church, and maybe not in Poland because the Catholic Church is very strong there, and so the Catholic Church is, it's been really corrupted with the child molesting and all that, but historically it really has been a bulwark against attack by godless atheists and the Jews. So that's probably part of the reason why, you see this hatred of Catholics in this country. Because if it isn't the Jews that hate them, it's the evangelicals who are pseudo-Jews that dislike them also. So, it's kind of funny that this stuff is still around. It goes back to the know-nothings in the old days, the plug uglies, all that stuff, it kind of never went away. It's just under the surface now. Everybody's like well-mannered about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can scratch the surface, I know there's a guy named E. Michael Jones. I don't know I'm sure you've heard of him. And he puts out a magazine called Culture Wars that I subscribe to. And
Yes.
he's really big on this kind of stuff, like the culture, and he names names. He goes like about the Quakers and how the Quakers get in league and try to destroy the Catholic Church. And it's very interesting about how they use blacks to like destroy Catholic neighborhoods, because Catholics started getting a lot of power back in the 60s and elected a president, Kennedy. And then all of a sudden they started using, blacks and building, black apartment houses in Catholic neighborhoods, and they destroyed areas of New York. And well, you know the story. But anyway, just if any of your listeners are interested, his name's E. Michael Jones, and a lot of his writings are on the internet. You can see interviews with him on YouTube. And this whole Catholic thing is kind of important, that to see it come out like so in your face. And if people can just get educated to the history of it and the motivations behind it, besides just the Supreme Court, I think it'd be a good educational thing for everybody. But I've taken up enough of your time, Mike, and thanks for hearing me out.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Well, now I've kind of changed my subject. Why I was going to call. Well, I'll ask you this first off, Mike. You've heard of Machine Gun Kelly?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of Tommy Gun Tom?
No, I have not.
Yeah, well, Tommy Gun Tom, yeah, he calls into your show on a regular basis from Florida.
Oh, okay. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm just teasing, I really like Tom, but see, he sprays that Tommy gun around, so he's not always on target. Sometimes there's a lot of collateral damage, because he doesn't pick the shots carefully. He just takes that Tommy gun and just sprays it around the whole room, But anyways, Tommy Gun Tommy, yeah, that's his sober text here for as far as I'm concerned. But hey, the last caller's name is who, Mike?
Joe in Tennessee.
About the church, huh?
Joe in Tennessee.
Oh, Joe. Mike, I have to, and I'm going to respectfully disagree. I'm not going to get in a cat fight. Like, the last thing you need is another desktop and everything. But I respectfully have to disagree with, would you say, Joe from Tennessee? Yeah. Mike, it's my understanding, and none of us were alive back then, so we don't know for sure. We're just talking about, we're just expressing our opinion on the best information we've gotten on different topics. But it's my understanding that it really was the church that empowered these Jews, maybe even, unintentionally, but the church didn't allow usury. No Christian, no Catholic could practice usury. And if they were caught practicing usury, the popes or the and then the bishops and so on and so forth would excommunicate them if they were caught practicing usury. But
the one exception to that was the Templars.
Yeah. The Templars and everything, yeah. But now with the Jews, the church just kind of winked and nodded and saying, hey, Jews will be Jews, and yeah, they practice usury, but we really can't do anything about it because we can't excommunicate them because they're not members of the church. So those are just Jews being Jews. But boy, if any Christian, if any Catholic is caught practicing usury, boy, we'll excommunicate them, and even worse, we'll maybe even burn them at the stake. But we'll let the Jews be Jews, and they can practice their usury. It's really part of their religion and blah. So, to me, the church, by default, let all these Jews. That's why all the international banks to gangsters and everything are all Jewish and everything, Mike. So, does that make sense to you?
Well, I think it's one aspect of a much more complex equation. But yeah, when you had the Christians and the Muslims both banning usury, it did give the Jews a certain financial advantage.
Yeah, and of course, then the Jews started, loaning money to the church and everything too, at low interest, and giving them preferential treatment and everything. That made the church even more tolerate the Jewish usury and everything. But anyway, since we're on the Catholic Church, Mike, this isn't what I originally called to talk about, but just one last thing I'll say. I was raised Catholic, but of course, I disavow Catholicism. I rebuke and renounce it. But one thing, there's many things that I could, how I could disprove the Catholic Church. But the one biggest thing in every Catholic church bulletin all across the country, Mike, even now, every Sunday, at least all back here in Boston and all through New England, because I go into, whenever I visit other states, New England states, I go into Catholic churches, I at least grab a church bulletin real quick. But they all have this thing. If you suffer from celiac disease, and the celiac disease is gluten intolerance, yes, please let the priest know, and special arrangements will be made for you to take Holy Communion privately and everything. Well, Mike, those SOBs, all through the Middle Ages, they put literally millions of people to death. Protestants, like the Albigensians and everything, because the Protestants said, yeah, we believe in the Lord's Supper, but we believe it's only symbolic. But the Catholics insisted on this transubstantiation, that once an ordained priest consecrates the host and it turns into the literal flesh of Christ and the literal blood of Christ and all this. Well, if the priest has that power, an ordained priest, when he consecrates the host and it's transubstantiation turned into the flesh of Christ, yes. Well, why are these celiac sufferers still, if it's the flesh of Christ instead of still weak and just a little wafer,
I see your point.
Why are they suffering? Huh?
I see your point. Yeah,
so it proves that transubstantiation doctrine is crap, and it's not just semantics. Like I say, billions of Protestants were put to death because the church would insist that they confess that in the Lord, the bread and the wine literally becomes the flesh and blood of Christ. And if a Protestant says, no, we believe it's just it's symbolic. The wine is symbolic of Christ's blood, and the bread is symbolic of Christ's blood. But it's not actually turned in, and they'd be put to death and everything else. So that's sickening that people still believe in that.
It means they're cannibals.
Huh?
It means they're cannibals.
Yeah, right. It really is. It's cannibalistic, really, Mike, when you stop and think about it and everything. So I think that Roman Catholic Church is exactly what I believe the Bible says it is, the great whore of Babylon, and I believe the great whore is married. The great whore has, just like supposedly God is married to his church, the church is the bride of Christ and all that. The great whore has a spouse too. And the great whore is married, espoused to the great Satan. The great Satan and the great whore, and they fornicated, and they produced harlot daughters. These mainline Protestant denominations, when the great Satan and the great whore fornicated, they produced the harlot daughters that the book of Revelation talks about. These evil mainline Protestant denominations. The great whore and all her harlot daughters, So they've destroyed Christianity. They've destroyed the teachings of Christ and everything else. It's basically, I just call it Christian insanity, Mike. Christian insanity. So that stupid Eucharist and everything is certainly not the flesh of Christ. And the celiac disease sufferers have proven that it's not the flesh of Christ.
Okay.
And those damn phony priests, no, it's not either. That's why they make arrangements to give it Holy Communion to a celiac sufferer privately and everything, with a gluten-free host and everything.
Yes.
I can't believe that people still believe this stuff. Like it sounds like Joe sounds like a really smart guy, but it sounds like he still believes that superstitious stuff from the Middle Ages or something, But anyways, thanks for letting me go on for so long, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Tommy Gun Tom.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, he's not in the call list yet, but we'll keep an eye out for him. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Peter, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
Well, action a mile a minute today, Mike. One of the things I want to bring up is concerns the Catholic Church and Judaism and the economy and usury and everything else. So it's tying a lot of threads.
Yes.
There was an article, I think I may have sent it to you. I know you ran it, about how the housing market in the United States is now 1/3 owned by the Federal Reserve.
Yes, the mortgages.
So 1/3 of all housing. This is before Thursday, when everybody gets kicked out of their house, right? So there's going to be even more people. That percentage is going to go way up. But that is a direct result, Mike, of COVID, of people not being able to make their rents, not being able to do whatever. And I've made the point before that the Federal Reserve, the stock market is at a relatively high point, considering that nobody's making anything and nobody's buying anything. And yet the stock market's still at a pretty high place. It's because it's been, quote, propped up by the Federal Reserve, which means they've bought all these publicly held companies at 25 cents on the dollar. They control them. Now they control the housing. When we get the housing is only going to be more controlled by them. We know who they are, the central bankers.
Okay. Peter, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show here. And again, a reminder that the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. We're going to go back to the phones. We're talking with Peter in Los Angeles, and you were talking about the economy, I think.
I was raising the point, Mike, that since COVID, the Federal Reserve, the central bankers, the Jewish central bankers, let's be clear, have bought up almost all of the publicly held companies or controlling interests of almost all of them in the United States, and not only the United States, but around the world, at 15, 20, 25 cents on the dollar. They also, there's an article that ran today about how they now control, as everybody's been kicked out of their homes, 1/3 of all the property in the United States. So they are landlords. They can cut us off from credit. They can do whatever they want, pretty much. They own the government. It's against the law to criticize them in more than half the states. And that's what we're talking about here. When Joe from Tennessee made the excellent point about how they're attacking what's her name, the new judicial
Tony Barrett
appointee designate, for her Catholicism. How many people are aware out there that there's with 1.7% of the population, there are 4 Jews out of the 9 on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And nobody ever talks about that. They're talking about Catholicism. Dianne Feinstein came right out, starts talking about doctrine and all that kind of, but who knows? Nobody raises a thing about that. Because why? Because the media is controlled by them too. And everything that you see and you hear and you read is influenced or shaped or outright controlled by them. Along with, they're going to be your landlord, they own your government, they own your legislature, they own your media, they own it all. And that's the real thing that's going on here. And in the past, I think Joe was also right that the Catholic Church has been a bulwark against this. Not successfully, but who has been successful against these guys? They take over everything they get near. They subvert almost everything. And somebody else made one more point. How in the world did Trump appoint Bolton? Well, it's really clear how he did. And who was the idiot that asked that? That was an idiotic question, because Sheldon Adelson picked him. Sheldon Adelson gave $100 million to Trump, and Bolton came in. And Gaza, the West Bank was given to Israel, and the Golan Heights given to Israel. That's why, because they bought their way in. And it's ridiculous. How did he get in there? Well, let me ask you something. It was a bad choice by Trump to appoint Bolton, no doubt about it, who's a total crook given to us on a platter by you know who, by the you know who's. But what about Obama? This idiot appointed Hillary Clinton. He appointed Joe Biden. He appointed Comey. He appointed Loretta Lynch and who's the other guy? The other horrible attorney general, Holder, Eric Holder. I mean, look who he appointed, and everybody knew they were all crooks. So whatever. Listen, Trump is a flawed product, but between the two choices, and it's a horrible choice. I agree with Mark in that the whole system needs to come down because both parties suck. And they're bringing us down. They're both owned by the same corporate people that now are our landlords, as well as our media masters and everything else. But at any rate, there it is, Mike. That's my rant for the day. That's the big issue here.
Okay.
Are we going to be allowed really to exist in our own country?
Are we going to be tenants in the land that our forefathers basically created? Yeah,
sharecroppers at best.
Okay.
So,
all righty.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you for the phone call. We got more callers waiting on the line, but we're too close to a commercial break. Okay, apparently the Trump administration and the CDC are being sued by landlords over the unconstitutional moratorium on evictions. So there's a fight brewing over that. And, I think the landlords ought to be thinking about, do they really want the properties just sitting there unoccupied without anybody there to take care of them? And apparently there are so many evictions on the horizon that there are new companies starting up where that's all they do. They're hired by landlords who don't want to actually have to confront their tenants, and they go on out. They're calling it the Uber of evictions, and they're already running employment ads. Be hired as an eviction crew. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials. We're going to be back with more phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the phones to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today, as if I can't guess?
Well, aloha, Michael. Aloha, Michael. Yeah, I didn't hear the first couple minutes when Mark got on talking about myself and Tom or whoever. But, Joe was right on. Like I had mentioned yesterday, and apparently Mitchell didn't understand that. I wanted to make my main point was about the Armenia-Azerbaijan war.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about Mark or anybody else. Now, I've even said in the past that, Mark's a good caller. He makes some good points, but I don't attack Mark. I just challenge what he might say. Now, this guy Mitchell, to the contrary, he come on here and attacked me and Tom.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a pass on that because nobody challenged him, although Joe did a little bit. But I'm telling you right now, go back to these, and he tries to make himself look really well by citing these numbers, and maybe he's good with numbers. But when you go back there on these numbers, what he's talking about isn't factual at all. I'm not even on these numbers he's mentioned, like in such case. He's talking about John Bolton. Well, I said from the beginning, I don't know where this guy is coming from. The first thing I always say, and you'll probably recall this, Michael, when Trump does something good, I say he does something good. When he does something bad, I say it's not right. And I've mentioned that with Mark and everybody. Yeah. And I've mentioned that with Mark and everybody. But this guy Mitchell is either very well informed or he's just, another troll. Because when you go back and look at these numbers he's citing, he's either confusing me with somebody else. I would like to think that because I don't want to think negatively of anybody commenting on me. He's either got me confused with somebody else or I'm not sure where he's coming from or he's a troll because I haven't talked about Bolton in a long time. Now, I was talking about Barr when I said it takes a crook to catch a crook. But what does that mean, Michael? Does that mean I'm a bad guy, or that
No.
I'm inceptive as to what's going on? And I don't know why Trump got a hold of him, but I've never been a Bolton fan, and I thought it was terrible from the beginning. Everybody knows Bolton is a chess pawn of Sheldon Adelson.
Yes.
So either this Mitchell is mistaken, and I can accept that, or he's a troll. So, and I don't feel, Mark called in and said what he wanted to say. I wanted to comment. I call this show to talk to you because I want to get your ideas, because you got excellent ideas, in my opinion. That's why I call in, and I love to hear the other callers. But yeah, I'm a Rivero Ranger from way back. And you know what? You did the right thing. I mean, people should be able to comment. I agree. Like when you backed up the First Amendment, that was the right thing to do. Now, I understand Chance, though, too. Chance, he wants to keep the peace and keep the Patriots all on one team. But I still think we can have deliberate debate and be on the same team. Now this Mitchell came in and he violated the law, if you ask me. He came in attacking me, attacking Tom, attacking everybody. But when you go back to those numbers he cited, he likes to sound like he knows what he's talking about. But those calls, what he's saying, those numbers are, and what he's mentioning about me are not the same thing. And I don't attack Mark. Mark does. I go to Mark's website. Mark's a good guy. I mean, we just disagree on some things, and I know on the things that I disagree with him is, listen, I understand that you got a bone to pick with Trump, and that's fine. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less. But Trump does do some things good, and that needs to be acknowledged. I don't pick on Mark, and, I wasn't trying to do anything negative when I didn't, say that I wanted to hear Mark on the phone and go back and forth with him. If we had a separate time to do that, that would be fine. But I needed to hear, because in my opinion, the Azerbaijan-Armenian conflict, to me, is at the root of it is the Islamic versus the Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And where we're going to weigh in there. And what did Albert Pike say World War III would be fought about, Michael?
Fought about or fought
about Christian?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yes, I'm agreeing with you.
Christianity? Yeah, exactly. And so, see, that's why it was engaging for me. And so much so that your opinion was more important than me squabbling back and forth with Mark, because I really don't have a squabble with Mark. I agree with him way more than I ever disagree with him. Like I said, I go to his website. He's got good website, good information. And I appreciate what he does, because he gets out there. And anybody who gets out there, in my opinion, you know what I mean? You're doing something, and you're to be respected. But this Mitchell from Memphis, I don't know where he come from. He's talking about me, and I haven't mentioned Bolton in weeks and weeks. Now, I mentioned Bob Barr. And I said,
well,
maybe
Mitchell was going all the way back to July for some of his some of the things that he was talking about, which, like I said, I'd love to have the stopwatch franchise for him.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you go back and look at the numbers he's mentioning, he's either talking about somebody else or he's a deliberate troll. One of the two.
We get him.
But, yeah, we do, because your show is number one. That's why, Michael, because you've been putting this information out for years and years, at least 20 years that I know about.
Yes.
At least 20 years that I know about. I think probably
since
about
1994.
Actually. Exactly. And that's when you first came out, and you would come out to places, and I went to one of those venues. It happened to be at a very liberal university, and you packed the house.
Yes.
And you packed the house with with a very broad base. Yeah, it was in the upper Midwest. Actually, it was in Michigan. And you packed the thing up, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I've been listening to you, following you, reading. At that time, you were doing mainly articles, and they were sensational. And then that was right when the Vince Foster was just coming about.
That's what started the whole thing for me with Vince Foster.
Exactly. And so I've been following you from way back, and these guys don't understand any of this stuff. A lot of them. I've known John Stadmiller since 1992. I mean, And I've been following his stuff and all the independent media, so to speak, from way back. But this Mitchell guy is way off. And like I said, if you go back and look at the numbers he's quoting, which he tries to give himself either validity with, or he's very mistaken, or he's a troll. And he can pick whichever one it would be. But I don't come on here and attack Mark. I might say, I don't agree with Mark because Trump's done some good things. And I'll be the first one to tell you, just as we've mentioned in the past, if Trump does something good, I'm going to say he did it good. If he did it bad, I'm going to say he did it bad.
Same here.
I supported Ron Paul. If he does something good, I'm going to say Ron Paul did something good. Fortunately, I agree with so much of Ron Paul. I can't really think of anything he's done bad. But that's how I am. I like to think of myself as an even-tempered person. I'm willing to listen to both sides of the issue. And like Dave from Boston, who I've listened to for at least 15 years, like Dave says, he calls me Mild Miles. So, I'm not out here, and I don't come here to engage anybody or attack. I'll comment on something they say, but I don't have anything to have an issue personally with somebody. I'll make a comment maybe on their comment, but that's it. I'm for the station, for the people, for free speech, and for the Constitution. So, and Michael, you have a great show, and I love it, and I wish there was more of it, but I'll take what I can get. And you have a great day.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for the phone call and for the kind words. And we're going to switch over to Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Mike. Your last two callers were great.
Yes.
Well, Peter, I love listening to what he has to say because it's staring us right in the face. And he was dropping some names there, and those names people still believe in. Like, how can anybody be a fanboy about any politician? I mean, it's insane to even consider such a thing. They're liars.
Yes.
They'll say anything. Media, they're liars.
Yes.
They'll say anything.
Yep.
So, I mean, the only thing that you can really trust is your own instinct. Literally. And the beauty of not pissing off everybody that you meet is you can actually have this kind of interaction with them. It's called a conversation. It's not a rant.
Nope.
And I've apologized for having a rant now and then.
Yes.
You just get going, right, Mike?
Yeah.
But people just need to slow down. Not everybody's right and not everybody's wrong. So, you just got to slow down a little bit. That's all. It's not hard. With this, these appliances that you called them, like your cell phone and whatnot. The appliances, yes. That's great. I love that. It's an appliance. So, anyway, with social media and all this, this instant gratification nonsense, credit and all that, and that's pretty much gone now anyway. But haven't people learned anything at all? The best things in life are the things that you have to wait for. You have to work for.
Yes.
It's just right there, but not yet. So some of your callers, I would like to, see them being a little more friendly to the other callers that I call.
I would like to see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a First Amendment thing. All it is not everyone's right, not everyone's wrong. Not possible. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten to this point where we're just smart enough and just ignorant and narcissistic enough to blow ourselves up in the whole process.
Yes. We wouldn't be throwing trash cans through windows.
Yeah, my God. The broken window theory, Mike.
Yep.
That's a good one to post again on your website, savings is better than debt. And it always has been, because the hand that gives is always above the hand that receives.
Yes.
And on that note, I'm going to say have a good one, Mike. I'm going to be listening. Thank you.
Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to David in California. David, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple things about. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on the air.
Yeah, I wanted to say a few things about Trump. I mean, he recently signed 3 bills to help the Native people. One gives compensation to the Spokane tribe, lost the land in the 90s. The funds and one funds language programs, and the third gives federal recognition to the Little Shell tribes of Chippewa in Montana, Indians in Montana. He finalized the Space Force for the military branch. He signed a law to make cruelty to animals federal felony so that animal abusers face tougher consequences. Violent crime has fallen, and I would probably make an exception after this, like last 3 months probably, but violent crime has, because there's a lot of defunding police, violent, not by him, but violent crime has fallen every year since he's been in office. And then he signed a bill to make hemp legal. Like, there's so many progressive things, what we call progressive things he did. Trump, EPA gave $100 million to the water infrastructure in Flint. His leadership in 2008 surpassed Russia and Saudi Arabia to become the world's largest producer of crude oil. Trump signed a law ending gag order on pharmacists that prevented them from sharing money-saving information. So he's really good on the medical side, saving us money on the VA helped out with them tremendously. Trump signed a law of the states and victims to fight online sex trafficking. It's called FOSTA. Which includes, anyways, and I got a few. I just go maybe another minute, then I'll make room. Trump signed a bill to require airports to provide space for breastfeeding moms. Tell me that's not a liberal thing, but whatever. And it goes on. The thing is, I think even a lot of the hosts and stuff, they don't even know, because it's not they listen to CN, or they might tune in, through the YouTube or whatever, but it's tremendous. Like, and I do believe Peter's call, and I this whole stranglehold, my doubt of him is how much he has resisted to go in Iran so far. I didn't like what he initially did in Syria with that missile strike, even though that didn't hit anybody. It hit a field or some armaments. And I didn't like when he blamed Assad 2.5 years or whenever it was. I might have the wrong chronological thing. When he blamed him for gassing the people, that was misinformation. If he knew it, he's lying. So I don't know what a stranglehold, how much he has. I think he knows he has to play ball with, like what Peter was talking about with Israel and different things. But there's so many things that he's doing that's unbelievable. And he just gave, like, the borders, like not letting everybody come in. That's wisdom. When you just let a nation come in with lower philosophies and stuff, where people, like, if you have extreme Islamistic or MS-13, it goes on and on. He created a White House VP hotline to help veterans and principally staff with veterans and direct family members of veterans. On and on, and maybe a couple more, then I'll get off because I want to make room.
Yeah, but we're running out of time here. In
that's
fact,
about
we've
it
got
for
about
that.
15
Okay,
seconds.
that's it. Some other time I'll call, maybe. Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Okay, well, we're coming up here on another commercial break here. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get to all the callers waiting online, and my apologies to those of you who will not make it. Just call back tomorrow. So we're going to take a break for commercials, back with our last segment after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. Last segment of the program today. We're going to go to Chris in Clearwater, Florida. My goodness, we have 2 whole listeners in Clearwater, Florida. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Usury. Since
Okay.
the caller mentioned the Christians and the Muslims prohibit usury in the Muslim Bible and the Quran. That's called riba, R-I-B-A. But you might be surprised to know that it's also prohibited by the Hebrew Torah. It's called nashak, which translates into snake bite, literally. But it's also a mortal sin according to all three religions. So that's something that we can unite on against the bankster gangsters.
Yes.
And something else we can unite on is very important at this point in history, especially the consolidation of power with the multinational corporations with no allegiance to any country, with board of members on the boards of director who are on several boards of director, as Richard Gage on your show mentioned with Project Censored has uncovered. And of course, they're coordinating their attack against us. So right now, it's most important to help grant ourselves a jubilee.
Yes.
Or if you don't believe in that, then however you want to call it, liberation. Economically, I think is the most important step towards all other kinds of health, as economic health and personal and ecologic health are all important. But we have community currencies, time banks, barter networks, cooperatives, swap shops, and community gardens. And with these, we can unite. We can get to know each other better by doing business with each other. And that way we can build bridges rather than complaining about one party or another. Oh, it's the Jews. Oh, it's the Russians. We can build up our own defense. Oh, those dastardly barbarians are here to attack us again. Well, just raise your shield or pull up the drawbridge. Don't act like a codependent where you're always complaining. Find some reason to complain about your current situation when you have the means with which to protect yourself.
Yes.
And to build, to improve your standard of living. So that's the message I have. I think that we should stop complaining about the personalities and work on the tools that we can maintain our sanctity and our dignity.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to try and squeeze Dan in Washington in these last few seconds. Dan, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking the call. I'll make it fast. The last caller, I agree with his points a lot, except the problem is, we really do have sort of a Jewish mafia running the money system. So, and according to Judaism, they do lend money at interest to anyone who's not Jewish, as far as I know. So it's part of the. So I called about the caller from Massachusetts. I think he was dead on point, and I totally agree with his view of Christianity, where the whole thing was pretty much set up from the beginning, where the Jews could lend money at interest, and Christians were not allowed to. And my view is these Zionist Christians have. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dan, I'm sorry. Can you call back in tomorrow to complete that thought? I got to let you go. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Please spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please, 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 please donate. We really need your help to keep doing what we're doing. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.